that when you talk about term extension in Zimbabwe, this should not just be treated as term extension, but this is extending the brutal rule of Emerson Mnangagwa to an effective third term. You have heard some of his supporters have already started to say, in fact, he should go up to 2035. And in 2035, if he is still alive, they would say he should actually go further than that if it's allowed. So, Professor Jonathan Moyo, obviously in his ex, pretending to be responding to a fellow called Tawanda Nyabirai, who wrote an article that I spoke about yesterday. Of course, I did not quote his name, but you could also see in the comment section of that particular account of his that Professor Jonathan Moyo was amongst the first people to respond and say yes. Now, Professor Jonathan Moyo used that opportunity to unpack to the public how he advised Emerson Tambuzonga. This should be taken as Professor Jonathan Moyo's advice to Mnangagwa so that he seek the third term. Greetings and welcome on your lovely channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. So this was actually written 19 hours ago, and he writes as follows: extending Zimbabwe's presidential and parliamentary terms of office, a contingent term length provision, not a rigid term limit cap. This insightful post now is actually taking Tawanda Nyabirai. Don't ever think these people are not working together. They are working together, and he brought this so that a lot of people may not see that this is in fact a plot involving Tawanda Nyabirai as well as Professor Jonathan Moyo. He says, adds critical, valuable perspective to the ongoing debate on presidential term limits. I think there is no debate. There is absolutely an outrage over this by the people of Zimbabwe. They are not debating. They are opposed to it. He says, backed by ZANU-PF's resolution to extend the term from 5 to 7 years, effectively from 2023 to 2030. Now, it says the key insight from Nyabirai's analysis is that Section 95 2B of Zimbabwe's constitution functions as a default provision rather than a true term limit provision as defined under Section 3281. Nyambirai argues that Section 95 2B, which sets the presidential term length, contains a lacuna. It acknowledges the possibility of alternative provisions elsewhere in the Constitution overriding the 5-year default. Thus, the 5-year term applies only in the absence of contrary stipulations, allowing President to insert a new clause for a longer term without directly amending Section 95 or violating Section 328(7). The logical conclusion from this is that Section 95 2B does not qualify as a term limit provision under Section 3281, which defines such provisions as those limiting the length of time a person may hold public office through fixed, capped tenures. You see, Professor Jonathan, they love playing with words. While I fully agree with the core of Nyabirai's reasoning, a closer examination suggests Section 95 to be a contingent provision without a genuine lacuna. This means it can be amended directly without the need for an awkward insertion of a clause elsewhere. and still avoid the restrictions of Section 3287. So this is how they plan to do it. Consider the language of Section 95. The term extends until certain conditional event, e.g. resignation, removal, or election of a successor, except as otherwise provided in this constitution. And is so they are using this except as otherwise provided in this constitution. This is what they are using to say this sentence left the possibility of editing or inserting another clause to allow Mnangagwa's extension of a term open. That is what they are saying. So they are actually playing with this phrase. Professor Jonathan Moyo, except as otherwise provided in this constitution. But also, this phrase is manipulated. In reality, this phrase says, except as otherwise provided in this constitution, of which it is not provided, except otherwise. So, except otherwise, if it is provided, of which the 2013 Constitution does not have a proviso for Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa to extend his term limit. So this is merely manipulation, clear manipulation, not actually a debate, it's manipulation. But someone is hiding behind his finger whilst everybody is seeing that this person is lying. He's lying and is contaminous with Parliament's life. These elements introduce inherent flexibility. There is absolutely no inherent flexibility there. Not a fixed, in fact, that is a fixed boundary, because there is nowhere in the Constitution where the issue of extension of the term of office is mentioned. There is absolutely nowhere. If it's not there, then whatever this phrase may have assumed that there may be elsewhere, but there is absolutely no elsewhere. Just imagine saying, I don't know on this studio if they are beer rangers, unless somewhere elsewhere where it is hidden. And if elsewhere where it is hidden, there is absolutely no beer ranger. So you cannot then say, by saying so, this left this clause open and flexible for an insertion to be done without necessarily a referendum. So they are trying, by all means, these cunning professors, to make twist where it is very, very impossible. The more they twist, they will see it will totally break, because this is, in my view, this will not work. So it goes to say, flexibility, not a fixed boundary. The phrase extend until implies variability based on the except as otherwise provided proviso allows for overrides, and the condominiosity ties it to Parliament's potentially adjustable lifespan, e.g., via early dissolution under Section 1432. Together, they make the end point of the presidential term of office indeterminate, distinguishing it from rigid term limit provisions like Section 186.2 to non-renewable 15-year term for constitutional court judges. This interpretation aligns with the Constitutional Court's decision in Max Mumpuru versus Justice Minister, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and ORS CCZ 7/21 2021, which differentiated fixed determinable period true term limits from non-specific or adjustable ones, e.g., age limits or conditional tenures. The Concord deemed these to be non-specific fluctuations of time, which are contingent and adjustable, thus falling outside term limits. So this is the view of Professor Jonathan Moyo. As a result, amending Section 95(2)(b) to extend the presidential term of office, e.g., from 5 to 7 years, falls under Section 3285 standard parliamentary process without requiring a referendum under Section 3287 for incumbents. Section 95(2)(b)'s duration is thus a malleable single term length susceptible to political and procedural changes consistent with the effluxion of time concept in Mupungu rather than a capped limit. Extending it modifies a flexible framework bypassing referendum requirements, unlike true term limits such as Section 91(2)'s two-term cap. Notable, Section 91(2) itself, the actual presidential term limit provision, sets only a minimum threshold, 3 or more years, counts as full term, with no upper cap on individual term length. It states a person is disqualified for election as president or appointment as vice president if he or she has already held office as president under this constitution for 2 terms, whether continuously or not, and for the purposes of this subsection 3 or more years, service is deemed to be a full term. The or more phrases allow terms longer than 3 years, e.g. 5, 7, or beyond, as determined by Section 95(2), amending that duration within the reasonable, justifiable bounds in a democratic society requires only Section 3285 parliamentary approval. No referendum is needed. To clarify, term lengths refer to the duration of a single term, e.g. 5 years, while term limits restricts the number of terms or total service, e.g. 2 terms max. Term limits govern re-eligibility with explicit caps featuring a clear starts and end point. Then where is the debate? I think if he actually used this reasoning, it's end to this debate that they are trying to force upon the people. It is against Emerson Mnangagwa. In constitutions without term limits, such as Zimbabwe's former Lancaster constitution, only term lengths are specified, allowing unlimited re-election subject to elections and eligibility rules. This unlimited aspect stems from silence on caps, not explicit provisions. The distinction is evident where comparing Zimbabwe pre-2013 Lancaster House Constitution with the current one. The former Section 63(1) duration and dissolution of parliament sets a 5-year parliamentary term. Parliament shall continue for 5 years from the date of its first sitting, allowing a general election unless sooner dissolved. This mirrors Section 1431 of the 2013 Constitution. Parliament is elected for a 5-year term, which runs from the date on which the president-elect is sworn in, and the parliament stands dissolved at midnight on the day before the first polling day in the next general election. Neither was nor is a term limit provision. They simply and only defined flexible durations or single term lengths, not term limits. A non-term limit provision in the old constitution doesn't transform into one in the new without explicit language. Term limit provisions regulate re-eligibility, and they do so by employing express language imposing an express limit or cap with a beginning point and an end point, which defines the limit cap. They don't imply, suggest, or infer such limits. The interconnected flexibility of presidential and parliamentary terms, consistent across the old Lancaster and the new 2013 constitution, except for the added cape in section 91(2) in the new, is highlighted by the 2007 Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 18 Act, section 3 and 4, shortened the fifth parliament's term, 2005 to 2010, by 2 years to align with the President's 2008 and the date under a 6-year term from Amendment number 7 in 1987. Section 3 revised Section 29(1). The term of office of the president shall be a period of 5 years concurrent with the life of parliament, or a lesser period where the president earlier dissolves parliament, or a longer period where the where the life of parliament is extended. Section 14 updated section 63(4). Parliament, unless sooner dissolved, shall last for 5 years, provided that where the period is extended, Parliament shall stand dissolved on the expiration of that extended period. These amendments demonstrate term length's historical adjustability for alignment without constituting term limit or caps, a standard in constitutional democracies. The pre-2013 constitution lacked presidential term limits, allowing unlimited re-elections. Okay. With section 29 setting a 6-year term, the president shall hold office for a period of 6 years, provided that the president shall continue in office until the person elected as president at the next election assumes office. This was a single term length, not a term limit provision. Now, it was replaced by section 95(2)(b) in the 2013 constitution, setting 5 years coterminous with parliament. The old focus was solely on duration. The 2013 added a 2-term cap in 91(2) without capping individual term lengths beyond the minimum of 3 years. This fellow is lying. Comparatively, the U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1, 1788, set a 4-year single term length for president without limit or caps. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years. Unlimited re-elections were possible until the 22nd Amendment, 1959, added, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. In 1951, term limit left the 4-year duration for a single term intact, separating term lengths from term limits, as did Zimbabwe in 2013. The Mupungu precedent reinforces this term limit provision, imposed fixed caps requiring referendums under section 3287 for incumbent extensions, while term length provisions allow amendments via section 3285 with no referendum. Zimbabwe's history and the US example confirm section 95(2)(b) and 1431 are amendable single term lengths, not term limits that are subject to section 3287. So in my view, I have said it long time ago, especially when I was beginning this. This is simply playing with words, and this, it doesn't make sense at all. The Constitution is clear. The term of one single term is clearly defined as 5 years. Whatever they are trying to twist, it doesn't exist. Whatever they say, it may actually be included, or unless or otherwise. Unless is an assumption. And an assumption that is wrong, by the way, cannot be located within the Constitution. Why are we discussing that? That is the question. So, Professor Jonathan Moyo's advice to Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa has absolutely no leg. The Constitution is so straightforward. Term limits are clearly articulated. And also, the term is 5 years, and no one should serve for more than 2 terms. That is, no one can serve for more than 10 years. Now, Mnangagwa has served the first 5 years. Now, he wants to extend the second term to 7 years. That would be 12 years, and of which that is by the Constitution. It is unconstitutional. No matter how they try to write long essay misusing, the United States Constitution, misusing the Lancaster House Constitution, it doesn't matter. So you can see this lame, very, very stupid, actually advice that Professor Jonathan Moyo gave to Mnangagwa, and Mnangagwa is running with this. I think you can see that this country has been in the wrong hands for this shortest period of time, and more harm has been done, and more harm is bound to be done. Professor Jonathan Moyo is indeed a heartless man. He is just like Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. Them, they are just one and the same thing. Thank you very much for watching us. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars. Do remember to follow our Facebook channel, that is Hloniphani Global News. We are also available on X as Hloniphani Global News. Let me laugh and leave you.